So today I just want to talk about why I've started to keep a notebook next to my bed and why I think that anyone who does anything creative should probably do the same. So if you're new to this channel, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. I'm aiming for 1,000 subs and any help would be really appreciated. So now that's out of the way, let's get started. Good afternoon everyone and welcome back to the channel. So this is a very different video from normal, but hey, let's just see how it goes, I guess. So as I showed in the opening, I have this notebook right here. Basically, I need to get a new one. It's almost empty. It's just a bit of scrap I had laying around. But the reason I've started to keep it next to my bed, so first I should probably explain the sorts of videos I do in case you're new here. So what I'll normally do is a lot of like Linux software showcases or Linux tutorials and things of that nature. And those typically come up while I'm using my computer, or for software showcases, a lot of that comes up from browsing things like Reddit. I don't browse much Reddit, but usually it comes from like r/command line, r/Linux. Then I have some other stuff that I usually get from like Alltops and other sites like Oh My God Ubuntu and OS Technics and things like that. That's how I typically find my general technical videos. But when it comes to more of my vloggy sort of videos, stuff like this was actually one of the videos that I actually came up with going through this process. So for videos like this, they don't typically come up unless I am actually actively thinking about it. But there's another time when they do, I think, more frequently appear, at least for me. So I've noticed that like brief period before I go to bed. So usually what I'll do is I'll read for a while and then that's when I go to bed a bit after that. So I'm usually getting into bed around midnight. So I'm getting pretty tired around that point. But I've also noticed that I actually start coming up with far more ideas than I normally do during the day. And I don't want to like interrupt my sleep by getting out my phone and starting to jot stuff down, because obviously that's another method, but you probably shouldn't be staring at a phone just before you go to bed. So instead of doing that, what I've decided to do is actually just pick up a bit of paper and start writing stuff down like that. Now, I'm obviously not the person who came up with this idea. I've seen this, I think I originally heard about it from someone like, probably like Joe Rogan or someone like that. But now that I've started to apply it, I've noticed that I've come up with way more ideas than I normally do. Like, I don't even know how many are on here. There is about 22 things on that list, and that was in about 15 minutes. Now, I wouldn't expect it to be as efficient every single night. Some nights you're going to be more interested in creating stuff, and some nights you're not. But I think it's a good idea just to have it there in case out of nowhere, or maybe you wake up like at 3 in the morning, like I've occasionally done, like I have a really good idea. I'll write this down before I forget about it, because the problem with coming up with good ideas is that they will very quickly disappear if you don't jot them down on something. Most people aren't too great at remembering, and if I'm speaking from my experience, I know that if I come up with some good idea like while I'm at work, and I don't jot it down on my phone, I'm going to forget about it really, really quickly. So the reason why I think this is useful for people who do other creative fields as well, besides just content creation, so I don't think there's really any difference on that creative juices side, basically. So whether it be, I don't know, you do some artistic stuff, you are a programmer, you are a video creator, you, I don't know, weave baskets, whatever it is that you do that is creative, I think that having some way to easily jot stuff down in that period of time where you're thinking your most creative thoughts is probably going to be a good idea. And even if half the stuff you write down is completely useless, I think it's still a good idea just to jot that stuff down, just in case you can make something work with it. So what usually happens is when I get the notebook out after I have my first idea, I'll then just like briefly look around my room, and once you start getting that first idea out, then more and more start flowing. So say for example, I got a new mouse pad that's sitting up on my bookshelf. I spot that and I'm like, maybe I could do a video on why mice are bloat. Or maybe I could do a video on why the idea of bloat is a thing. Or how do you define what is software bloat? And once you start getting those ideas, I'm sure it's the same for other sorts of creativity as well. Once you've got those first ideas, then it's much easier to keep coming up with more and more of them. Now, I'm obviously not running out of ideas. Like, my list already had like 400 different videos on it. I have literally got over a year's worth of content to do. I don't know whether half of it's good. Most of the time, what I'll do is just jot down anything. So if something sounds remotely interesting at the time, I'm like, okay, is this going to be a good video? Doesn't matter. Put it on the list and we'll think about it later. And I think that's probably the best way to go about dealing with creativity. Don't think about whether something is a good idea right now. Jot it down, and after you're done with thinking about your new ideas, go back to it and it's like, okay, is this actually a good idea or is this completely useless? Like, let's pick something I wrote down last night. Let's say, for example, I've got, what's a one that would work? So, could I survive without a GUI? So, that might be an interesting video, doing something about whether I could survive within a Linux environment without a graphical user interface. I think that actually would make a fairly good video, but then there's other stuff in here, like, let's say, why did I take so long to switch to Linux? I think I might have covered this in previous videos, so I jotted this down because I wasn't sure about it. Even if you think that you might have done that before, it's still a good idea just to jot it down and be like, okay, now that I'm actually done thinking about this stuff, have I actually done this? Or am I just thinking that I've done this? Am I thinking about that time that I thought about that I did this? Or is this something that's actually new? So ultimately, it's best to just get your ideas down. And for me, I think that this is probably the most efficient way for me. I know that I'm rambling at this point, but I didn't really have much of a plan for this video. This is more just me getting out like my creative thoughts on how I go about actually coming up with video ideas. So everyone's going to have their own sort of ways about thinking about new ideas to come up with. But I think that getting a notebook, if you don't have any idea whatsoever, I think that it's still a good idea, even if you've got some other method. Like maybe you are someone who is a big fan of, I don't know, brainstorming, or you like mind maps, or other things like that. I think that just having something to jot down those ideas, even if you have some other primary method for coming up with ideas, I think it's still a good idea just to have this on the off chance that you come up with, because a notebook's only like a couple of dollars. Even if you don't use a notebook, maybe just a scrap bit of paper. Just have a scrap bit of paper and a pen nearby, just so if you come up with something that you think might be a good idea, just so you have something to jot it down with. And as I said, you could use your phone, but I really wouldn't recommend staring at your phone that late at night. It's probably not for the best. So I might as well also show you just where I keep my ideas generally, because I don't like having them just in a notebook, just because I'm going to probably lose the notebook, or I'm just not going to, I don't know, easily be able to find an idea. I like being able to have them in a very simple place to find. So what I use is I use a program called Joplin, which I have brought up before, and I'll typically use this for other stuff, but right now I'm just going to be using it for video ideas in this example. So I have a couple of different notes in here. Some of these are for video ideas. This one's a video I did a while ago. This is another video I'm going to do at some point. And then I've also got this one that should probably move. This is about how cameras work. That's not too important to right now though. But my main one is this big list right here. So I'm probably going to split this up into multiple different lists because it's just very difficult to find anything, because as I said, it's 400 lines. So yeah, we're not going to keep this in one file. And I've started to split them up. So I've got this one right here. Where is it? So this is a list of videos for things that aren't related to YouTube, talking about things like BitTube or library. So I'm probably going to split all of these sections up doing the same way. And the reason I like having it on my computer like this is that since it's in a text file, I can just use Vim to keyword search for stuff. Whether that be I want to do like let's just go one example. Like let's say I want to do something on Linux. So I'm in the wrong part. Linux, right here. So I can be like, okay, there's a Linux thing here, getting started with VirtualBox on Linux. Why did I take so long to switch to Linux? Maybe that'd be interesting. What else do we have? So this one on Linux Git stats, I'm not even sure what that one is. But having them on my computer rather than just storing everything on paper is going to make it easier to actually get to the ideas when I actually want to make that content. So ultimately, everything in this notebook that I have ends up being put onto my computer, sometimes not in the most ordered way, as you can see from the way that it currently exists, but it'll always end up on my computer at some point, just so I can easily jump between stuff and basically just so I can easily search between it, because yeah, I could write out thousands and thousands of lines on paper, but the problem with that is I don't want to read through that. Like, when I go to make a video, I typically don't really search through most of it. I'll find the first thing that interests me, and maybe also then find some stuff that actually relates to the content that I was uploading at the time. And that's usually how I'll go about doing that. I try to keep a theme between my videos and try to keep, if I'm going to do something, I guess, different, I'm going to try to lead into that. So, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, this is going to entirely depend on how you like to work, but this is how I go about the creative process. And if you've got any suggestions for how I can improve my workflow or things that you just do for yourself, let me know down below and I'll be happy to address them. So I think that's pretty much everything for this video. So if you liked this video, remember to smash that like button and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think. If you want to see more videos like this, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below, because it'll really help the channel out. I'm aiming for 1,000 subs and any help would be really appreciated. Up on that corner, I've got the playlist this video's in, so go check that out if you want to see other videos like this. Down below, I've got all of my alternate video platforms. Library is still the focus, but there's a couple others now. I've also got my social links down below, so if you want to chat with me anywhere, like Discord, anywhere like that, check those out. And I've also got my support link, so if you'd like to support the channel, go check that out. Any help would be really appreciated, but obviously you don't have to do that. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, so I'm out.